All right, welcome back. It's now 8 minutes past 7 a.m. Karibu sana to the program. This is Good Morning Kenya. Of course, we need to be taking a look at some of the things that will be taking place in the country today. And of course, at 9 a.m., as we earlier told you, the president will be signing the IEBC bill live at KICC. So be sure to catch that event that will be coming to you live in studio here on KBC Channel 1. I hope you had a great morning. In the city, it's been raining since yesterday. Gentlemen, it's been a great day. I have got Butichi, who is from the government, the other side of government delivery unit. Butichi, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
He's a governance expert as well as a political analyst. I also have Wakili, advocate of the High Court, Wakili George Kithi. Wakili, good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
A lot has been happening in the country. I don't know what you make of it. The IBC bill finally is getting to have some ink on it. Wakili.
Yes, I think it's time. In fact, it's late in the day because, you see, we have a representative democracy in this country. Over 1 year now, there are people who have not been represented. Yet other constituencies and representations have the advantage of representation. They are accounted for on account of what's on the table and what's for them. It is said that there can't be legislation without representation, meaning that all the laws that are being made for those people who don't have representation are being made without that representation, which is crucial.
Yes.
So that if you come from a constituency where the member of parliament is no longer a member of parliament for whatever reason prescribed in law, either by death or by application of law of whatever nature, it means therefore that if they are passing the finance bill, they're doing it without your voice, that is equal to the other voices being voiced, for the reason that you are not being represented. And therefore, that's an illegality, that's unconstitutional. We need to correct that almost immediately. I know that has not been robustly taken up, or it's now that it's coalescing into an issue that the government and the country is looking at. But it must be signed. There's no option to it. It must be signed, and we must fill those positions so that then we can do the business, which is crucial, that unifies us.
Yes.
Democracy and IBC is one of the institutions that remains as a pillar in advancing democracy.
We have so many constituencies, including several wards. Let's come. A classic example is Banisa constituency.
Yes.
Almost 2 years without a representation. Yes. But then you'll allow me to ask you this question, and perhaps you can answer it in the next round. Whether the people of Banisa can legally take either government, Attorney General, IEBC, or which institution to court for lack of representation. I know somebody would argue because they have got a woman rep, but does that role of a woman rep equate to the role of a member of parliament? All right, in terms of the job description, et cetera, et cetera. They've not had representation for, since election, 2-3 months thereafter until now. But Engineer Hamisi Butichi is also here with me. You must be a happy man. Finally, the IBC bill is getting some ink on it as well. Let me get your point of that.
Yeah, thank you. I would want to say that first of all, the views I represent this talk show are my personal views. Very important. And not government official position. Secondly, is that we've not had IBC for that long. And the way my brother said, there are those constituencies, wards, which do not have representative in Bunge or in whatever capacity. They have not been represented for the last 2 or 1 year. It is high time that, because we didn't really imagine a situation whereby most of the commissioners, if not all of them, would not be in office, so that should a vacancy arises due to death or court cases or resignation or whatever, then would have no people to conduct the elections. So my suggestion is that Bunge should also look into mechanisms of coming up with a law. Because really, if we have vacancy in 2 constituencies in the country, it doesn't need the whole IBC commission to be able to conduct that election. So Bunge should look at other mechanisms which can be used in case such a scenario happens. Because the way our commissioners come in, like the ones who resigned, they resigned almost at the same time. The chairman was also retiring. We should have a mechanism of even having staggered tenures of these commissioners, so that at no point should we not have all the commissioners, most of them, in the office. So we should have a mechanism of curing that if a vacancy arises in one constituency or a few wards, then the elections can still proceed with a certain minimum threshold of management within the IBC.
Yes, I like what you said, but look, we know IBC, the commission itself is an independent commission, but is it independent? Because somebody would argue that that commission has been affected, politically speaking. Butishi?
Of course, from a political angle, is that is a political body, because, for example, the government cannot unilaterally decide who commissioners are. Even the other political parties within the country participate in the process. That is what is envisaged, that all the political parties within the country, especially the major politicals, will be involved in terms of deciding who the commissioners and how the selection process is for the commissioners. These, I think, it came through whatever we had in the past, the IPP.
Yes.
That whenever this body is being constituted, then all other political parties, apart from the government party, then all other political parties should be involved. Of course, yes, there must be some political contribution towards the commission.
Yeah. Wakili, you also have two questions on the same, and the first question I asked you whether somebody can go to court and sue, I don't know who, for lack of representation.
Now, legality of a law is based on the majoritarian rule that the more the members of parliament pass it, it becomes binding on everyone. That's one aspect. But again, it is a very good test before the court for a person from an affected area without representation to argue that we are arguing, for instance, on a finance bill that is getting passed or whatever type or piece of legislation. And a person from Kimilili has an advantage. A person from Nairobi has an advantage. A person from Machakos is being represented. I have not been represented. Certainly you can't take a person from Turkana to come to Kiambu to ask people in Kiambu what they think about a certain bill as he represents Turkana. Representation is a bias for the people that have sent you to represent. There's no bias when there's nobody. Death is silence. It doesn't speak, and those that are in the grave don't speak to anyone. And therefore, the representation ceases by law when a person ceases to hold their office on account of application of law, including death. And therefore, there is no representation before Parliament if then there is no person occupying that office of representation at an MCS level or Member of Parliament or Women Rep. Of course, this has been envisaged in law, and that's why there are laws on how a vacant position is to be filled. And that is handicapped by additional experiences, including that there is non-constitution or an unconstituted body that oversees the authority for elections, that is IEBC. And that is not the problem. It is bad politics and bad behavior of those in authority not to constitute it, include the competitive politics that we have. That protagonism certainly then silences the voice of those that will speak to representation. Direct democracy largely is exercised when we hold our elections initially under Article 1, so that we send people to a congregation, a summit of sorts in Parliament, where then they make laws for the people and their voices are heard. Indirect democracy, therefore, exercised by the people of that constituency that is affected, for instance, is when a person speaks. So it means, therefore, there's no exercise of indirect democracy, of whatever type of democracy whatsoever. When a law is passed, including the finance bill the other day, in fact, when people are doing mandamano, the type of mandamano of such people should be very different. Should be that, yes, that mandamano is because you are represented in the first place and dissatisfied.
Yes.
We didn't even have the advantage whatsoever of voicing our voices in the first place so that we can be in the same platform of mandamano. So then it is illegal, unconstitutional, and therefore very damaging for laws to be passed when others are not being represented. It is actually discriminatory.
That's what you call unfair representation.
It is discriminatory.
Right.
It is discriminatory because it
So
means,
now what happens in this situation?
It
Now
means for those 2 years.
This bill is going to be...
For those 2 years, whatever law has been passed, the voices of those people that did not have a representative were never heard. So it means we've passed laws, we've actually committed this country into expenditure when those people's money have been taken away from their pockets in
Without
terms
their
of taxes,
consultation.
without seeing
how
the money should be used. And there can't be taxation without legislation where a person has been represented.
Can a woman represent them on behalf of member of parliament?
No. A woman rep is put there for very special reasons. And that is activism, period. And even that activism is skewed to a certain gender. So a woman rep, for instance, in terms of how members of parliament act in parliament, there are those that go there and act substantially to represent a constituency or sub-county. But there are those that go there to represent the youth.
The
women. The disabled. And that constituency is not restricted to a certain constituency. It's for the whole country. So a person representing people with disabilities is not a person representing a certain constituency of a people in this country.
Yeah, and even when you look at our constitution, we have various seats. We are from the president, deputy, MPs, a member of National Assembly, governors. There was a reason why all those positions are there. For example, a woman rep will represent majorly disadvantaged groups within the county, not the constituency. She cannot come down to represent a constituency. So it means that all the national issues that have been conversed at National Assembly, then this constituency was never really represented. Because you remember, National Assembly discusses matter at national level. Whatever my MCA represents me at county level, at ward level, those issues are conversed there and they end there. But now when it comes to national issues, which are supposed to be conversed by the National Assembly, it means then people from those constituencies where they don't have representation in Parliament, in National Assembly, then they were disadvantaged. Same thing to county assemblies. The MCAs who've perhaps been removed by courts or died, also they were never represented at that particular level of county level. Yes.
All right, gentlemen, let me take you through the front page of local dailies very quickly. On the front page of the Standard, patience runs thin on Ruto reform pledges. Patience runs thin on Ruto reform pledges. This is what's on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Okay. Still on the headline there, Gachagua and wife sulk over reduced office budgets. All right. So that is what is here. Remember in 2022, there was a journalist who was, quote unquote, who was shot on account of a mistaken identity, now state to pay 10 million shillings for Pakistani killing. The court ruled yesterday. And gentlemen, intern doctors spent a night at Afia House yesternight. So I don't know how it's going to pan out today. And yesterday, the minister, the cabinet secretary for health, also met some of the medical officials. And now here we are, Gen Z's plan with military precision. Gen Z's plan with military precision. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Very quickly on the front page of the Star, again, ministers starved of 244 billion shillings budget cash. More or less the same as what's here on for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Ministries starved of 244 billion shillings cash, budget cash. What do you have on the front page of the Daily Nation? This one is more of a narration of members of parliament. How we fled. I don't know where they fled and what happened, but I think it's in relation to what happened during the Mandhana. And we have got Milu Dhiambo here. We have got Didmas Baraza representing Kimilili and Bishop Jackson Kosgei, who is a nominated member of parliament. They're just giving a narration on how they fled, how we fled. This must be an interesting story. And Gachagua isolated at home and away. Again, that's what we have here on the front page of the Daily Nation. Gentlemen, very quick, let me start with you, Butichi. I want you to combine all the three pages. That's how we fled. Ministry starved of 244 billion shillings budget cash, as well as patience ran thin on Ruto reforms pledge. Take it away.
Thank you. I think those stories highlight what is going on in the country, and more so the demonstration that we've seen for the last 3-4 weeks arising from the finance bill. All those are ripple effects of those mandamanos.
Yes.
And the eventual withdrawal of the finance bill from becoming into law. I want to say that the kind of mandamanos that we are seeing being demonstrated by the young people, they are what we used to see in the past. But this time round, those mandamanos are about enforcement of the constitutional changes that we made during the 2010 constitution. That's the first thing. Initially, those who were there before used to fight for those particular rights and constitutionalism to be entrenched in the constitution. But we are no longer fighting for those particular constitutional rights to be enshrined in the constitution, but rather to be implemented. That's number one. Number two, if you look at the mandamano that we're having right now, is about the economic justice of people. Because at the end of it, after withdrawal of the bill, what we are saying is that the youth are saying there are no jobs, there are no opportunities for us in terms of economic empowerment. So it's kind of different from what used to happen initially, in that sense that right now people are fighting for economic empowerment by government opening up spaces, giving opportunities for the young people, and also minimizing on the expenditure by the government. Because when you minimize expenditure, it means that whatever you've saved can actually be directed to creating employment opportunities for the young people. And this was just a time bomb that was waiting, because these young people did not start lacking jobs today. It has been a problem that has been piling over years. It's only that when this government came into place, it came on a hope of many young people that things will be different, job spaces will be opened, business opportunities will be opened. I can tell you that whatever budget cuts you're seeing there, these are budget cuts that are done on things that are physical. For example, when you remove tea from offices, when you remove those unnecessary travels. But I can tell you where I'm coming from as an engineer, there's a lot of money that is wasted in projects. Why? You find projects are being overpriced by those who are in the offices, in the ministries. You find the unnecessary spending in those projects. So when the president is done with those physical items that he can talk of budget cuts in terms of travels, in terms of teas and coffees in the offices, the next step then should be that we should now look into those projects that are being implemented by different ministries. How they are budgeted, how the BQs are made, whether there is wastage, whether there is thieving in those BQs. That should be the next one. I can assure you as an engineer.
What is BQs, for the sake of my kids?
Bills of quantities.
All right.
Because what happens in some of the ministries is a project could be costing 1 billion, but you find those bill of quantities that have been appraised to read 1.3 or 0.4. If we go that way, then we're going to save more money that can go into creating job opportunities and business opportunities for the young people. One thing that Bunge came up with some time back was that they gave a provision within the procurement plan, procurement PPUA, that there will be companies for the youth. Youth will form companies, people with disabilities, women. But what we see today, when those companies get jobs, they don't belong to youth. Because initially, what Kibaki did, actually by 2008, I voted for Kibaki for the second term. What he did that time is that when this law became law, he made sure that ministries, most of the ministries and government agencies, were segregating the contracts into smaller units so that these young people can be able to share out. But right now what you find is that most ministries and state departments, they accumulate those projects, because I don't know whether in this country there's a youth who can do a project worth 100 million. Then he must be a very privileged youth, because we're talking about projects of 5 million, 2 million, 3 million, so that we can have more youth getting
depends
this
on the
project.
financial power.
Yes.
Okay, before you take a break, quickly, but then just a disclaimer. You said that budget cuts for coffee and tea in offices. We have coffee. We have coffee here. Yeah, we have coffee. You can confirm that.
Yeah, I can confirm.
Very good, very good. Wakili, on the front page, we'll take a break. What do you make of the front pages?
Let me twist it a bit into the constitutionality and what that means. Let me read to you what Article 1 says, which is a very interesting issue, and I know many people don't look at. It says all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, and shall be exercised only through or only in accordance with the Constitution. That's very important. But the second one is the magical one. People, the people of Kenya, may exercise their sovereign power either directly, please note that, either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. I repeat, the people may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representative. Now, in law, when a word comes before another, the second one, when there's use of the word or, the second one becomes the option. So the people may exercise their sovereign power directly. So first, you can choose as a people of Kenya to exercise your democratic power directly, foremost, or through the MPs. All right? So the MP is second to the people. It's not the first. I know there's this environment as if they come first in everything they do. Members of parliament are secondary in terms of the constitution's option. They're optional. So every time we exercise our power, it is the first in options that are given by the constitution. The second are the members of parliament. So for us to congregate at Kasarani, at whatever environment, and say this is what we want, that is exactly what the constitution says. And then you can go to parliament and pass it. So when we say the budget must read as follows as a people, in the manner we have done it, that's the first option, appointed by the constitution, appointed by ourselves. Then members of parliament can come second. So in a sense, what we're saying is, whatever people of Kenya says, their voice is greater than the voice of the members of parliament.
Elected.
It means, therefore, for whatever, how the elasticity of that statement depends on how we interpret it in law, of course, how the courts will look at it. But it must be done on members of parliament that they come second to the people of Kenya in matters, administration, and whatever people of Kenya want. So when we say, in a voice that is majoritarian to the people of Kenya, do not pass the finance bill, we have said, because the Constitution has given us that voice in Article 1, sub-Article 2. It is not what they say. So it was very offensive of the Constitution for members of parliament to try and overrule and overturn the will of the people, the sovereign power of the people, by passing that bill. It is a shame.
Let's take a break. Wow. Are you in a law class?
In
Kenya School of Law?
No,
we've just gotten one.
I come from School of Engineering.
That was a nice interpretation. I mean, yeah. You get it? Okay, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, welcome back. Buttigieg, what are you saying? Continue. Go ahead.
I was just making a rejoinder to my brother here that, you know, the way MPs have narrowly interpreted that article is that people will have a direct representation at voting. Then thereafter, the members of parliament carry the burden of representation of the people through the various houses, the Senate, the National Assembly, the County Assembly. But the way my brother puts it is that actually people can decide, they can meet and decide and give a resolution. But then my question is, if they gave a resolution that, for example, we don't want this, and then the members of parliament or members of National Assembly, those who went against that decision, what is the fallback for the Mwananchi? Wakili?
Yep. just to expand on that, and then I tie it with what you've said, is this, that look at the government as a company. The company has shareholders, primarily the owners of the company. Then they appoint directors. The directors will make decisions on a day-to-day basis. Fundamentally, shareholders of a company can overrule directors.
Yes.
All right? Because they merely represent what the shareholders want. So if there'll be dividends to be paid, for instance, to the shareholders, and the shareholders want their dividends, but the directors not want, the dividends will be paid to the shareholders anyway, through a resolution of the shareholders. They just need to come together and overrule them, and even remove the shareholders. So that is how the country is organized, that there'll be representatives who will speak for us on a day-to-day basis. But the day that we think they're not committing themselves to our ideals, we can overrule them, and we did overrule them. We forced them to take back, or we forced a situation that was not in agreement with the population. Now, coming to what are the options if members of parliament become belligerent in the manner that was experienced recently. Remember that we have put tools to implement the first section of Article 1, Sub-Article 2, the sovereign power of the people, meaning every law that is going to be made, you have always to go back to the sovereign power of the people and ask them through something called public participation.
Yes.
And ask them, this budget, we are putting money for the wife of Gachagua. Do you want the wife of Gachagua to have this money? All right? And when we say no, but then the members of parliament, they go and put the money to the wife of Gachagua anyway, what we tell them is that then we are going to occupy parliament. And parliament was occupied. That was Article 1, the first part of Article 1, Article 1, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution. So there was nothing illegal about going there to flush them out in a manner to tell them to resign their decision. And I know they regret, because it obviously became obvious that they had not implemented the will of the people. We are saying this.
Yes.
First, the Constitution talks about the will of the people before the will of members of parliament. Members of parliament are merely representation, maybe directors of a big company called Kenya. The shareholders are the people. When they overrule, when they say do not pass this, we want this to happen, or we do not want this to happen. Because when you go to parliament, we send you with only two cards: do or do not, the do's and the don'ts. So if you go there and implement something that is beholden to some other power other than the power of the people, meaning sovereign power of the people, you are therefore committing an illegality unto the people. It is therefore offensive to the people. Meaning, therefore, Article 1 can apply. And the people then can take, it's not taking law into their hands, it's taking sovereign power to be the most dominant aspect than representative power.
Let's just come back home slightly. And now the president is going to assent to that bill at KICC. Something quite unique here. Most of the bills are always signed in parliament, in State House, but this time around, it's going to be done in public at the KICC. Butichi, why do you think that is happening? You know, why not in State House this time around?
To my thinking is, you know, State House for the last couple of months has gained a bad name. For example, MPs were accused that they went there. They were coerced, and they accepted to go and implement a wrong bill. So, as matter of maybe public perception, and you see, once you're in the State House, all authority and advantage belongs to the president, who is the occupier of the State House. So for my own thinking is that for it to be done in a public place like KICC, is probably to have wananchi have confidence in that bill, because it's a public space, and my cue, all political leaders, party leaders, have been invited.
Even the finance bill is a public property. Yes. It belongs to the people.
Normally, you see, for those kind of bills, which are for the public good, ordinarily the president should be in Harambee House, because that is the office where most of the actual work should be done.
Yes.
But most of the time, because of conveniency and other reasons, those bills are normally taken to State House for signing. But ordinarily, it should happen at Harambee House. For this time round, I think since he wants to have everybody on board from all the political parties, then KICC serves better.
What has changed? Wakili, I'm just curious here. What has changed? Because even the finance bill, what people are talking about, including a primary school kid, finance bill 2024, was under his State House.
Yes.
Actually, it was not signed.
That's my own reasoning.
That is your, yeah, I get it. But
yes.
Why that change? All of a sudden, that you're having this IBC bill signed at the KICC and not in State House? Was it to accommodate everyone, including the opposition members of parliament, civil society, and all that?
Now, there are two issues, emergent issues in that thinking. There is the question of legality and legitimacy, which I think we've discussed before here. President William Ruto is legally the President of the Republic of Kenya. There's no argument about it. But legitimacy to rule is about the power of the people accepting you as the president. So whatever you say, we listen. There have been many questions. He's been questioned. And therefore you can say that the legitimacy was being shaken on account of the demonstration by Gen Zs. And legitimacy is a question of how you appeal to the public. By the way, you can issue an order to even a military at times, and they don't respect it because the legitimacy has been compromised. Now, there are tools, symbolic tools that you need to use in order to impose the legitimacy element as opposed to the legality, because legality remains a constant throughout your term. Now, when you do, those tools include how you respond to the complaints or the threats to the legitimacy element. One of it is obviously to be seen in public. Number two, to preside over, because at times such issues, you preside over a military parade, just so that then you show you are in control. Now, one act, I believe, that then expands and imposes the element of legitimacy is to change the fact that in secrecy or in the seat of power at State House or whatever forum, that is the usual seat, taken away, of course, from the people, not a public place, will be the place where most of the laws are signed. And because people have looked at this seat in a manner that it does not restore confidence, you need to come down to the people. You need to climb down to the people. In doing so, symbolism becomes very important. One of the symbolic tools you use is how you engage in open. And therefore, one of it is to sign the bill.
Could it be because IBC has, the issue of IBC has been shrouded with a lot of secrecy and a lot of political chest thumping and all that? Butichi, when you look at that, we've not had IBC in place for now since last election. But could it be because every electoral cycle, we usually have this issue of IBC, including the likes of Utino Kajwang, the late, talked about IBC issue. We are not going to the next election without the reconstitution of the IBC, and now we are having it here. And the way all of you are saying that it has to come back to the people. So it doesn't belong to one individual, the president. It's being signed in State House because now this is a president's document.
Yeah, IBC as a commission, though independent, the way I said earlier, is normally involves a lot of consultations among the political parties. That's number one. Number two is that the way also the appointment is done of these commissioners, normally they are supposed to run just one election. And then get into the next term, halfway or quarter way, then we have a new IBC in place. The way the appointments are normally done. Because if it's done for 5 years and then you appoint midway in the first term, then it means to run the next election, and then midterm, it will be back home. So the way you've said is that, the way Wakili has said is that it being drawing interest from various political players, then it cannot be a reserve of the event or the ceremony happening only in State House. Remember, State House is a restricted area where even members of public will not have a glimpse of what is happening inside there, only the invites. But today at KCC, if you are on the streets of Nairobi, you can walk in there and witness the signing of these documents. Basically, what the president is doing is, the way my brother I say that, he tries to use that one to bring confidence of all Kenyans that whatever process now going forward into nominating those commissioners, it will be an open book for everybody, starting with the bill into the act, and then the normal management procedures which will be involved in appointing those commissioners.
So what should you expect now moving forward? Because now IBC is going to be reconstituted. We have got a lot is going, the wheel is going to start rolling from today once it's assented to. So what do you expect? Because the house is empty, basically.
I expect the process to move with speed. That's first thing. That the procedures put in place to appoint these commissioners will be done back to back. We'll not have a situation whereby we have a stalemate. Because at the start of it, if you're involving all the political parties and then you're agreeing on the way forward, then we should have minimal disruptions in the process. That's number one. Number two, I expect an IBC that will be all-inclusive in terms of everybody getting satisfied that whatever commissioners are there, they're not only being fronted by one political party or two, that everybody will be comfortable with it. Going into the next election, 2027, then we should have also minimal complaints from the other parties. So those are my two expectations with today's event, that those two will be met along the way.
Okay, your expectation, because remember during the dialogue committee at the Bomas, there's a bit of some recommendations which came out, and as EMIO, as a body, also recommended a certain composition of the IBC as it is. Do you think that is going to be reflected moving forward?
I think the piece of legislation is good. It's an improvement from the initial one.
Yes.
And I know this is not the last piece of controversy on IBC. It will continue to be improved over time and over generations. But I'll tell you this. My opinion is probably slightly pessimistic on that place. I say it because IBC has been a political tool of trade for those that are in power and those that are not in power. The reason is it's a gateway to power. It's what IBC says and pronounces that gives people seats or denies people seats. In fact, it is IBC that pronounces who a president is, who a governor is,
yes,
and which political party then has more seats than the other. So it is everything democracy. IBC is the gateway upon which then a person gets the seat, whatever seat it is. And therefore it is where all eyes will go. I expect friction and tension at the time that we move into implementation. In fact, the harder part will be at implementation. The personality that gets scrutinized in many ways. The ethnicity, the ethnic background, his background, probably how he conformed himself to the political space on account of his pronouncements and where he's worked before. If you put the clergy themselves, they'll be looked at a clergy, for instance, a church that is domiciled much in Mount Kenya as opposed to Rift Valley, or Rift Valley as opposed to Mount Kenya or the coast. If you put engineers, he must be an engineer of a personality with a language, with an ethnic background. So if you put lawyers alone, you say Mudavadi is going to be the president. If you put Kikuyus alone, then it means Rigathi Gachagua probably has an advantage. If you put Kalenjins alone, then it'll be looked at as if the president is mounting himself in a certain way. If you put Luos alone, separated in accordance with the proximity to what will be a Luo beholden to in terms of the bias in elections experiences before, and that will be Raila Amolo Odinga. If you mix it, there'll be definitely a compromise of sorts even in that mix-up. In the last elections, it played out at the last minute, when we had a clique of rebels, or I would say rebellious commissioners to what will be ultimately the leadership of IBC, and that mix and match of sorts. That is democracy, because friction is part of democracy. In a sense, it's majoritarian and so on and so forth. But I want to put it this way, that the feeling of IBC will have a component of the 2027 elections. Therefore, we'll have an eye of that composition of 2027 elections in a skewed way, and the bias that could come from it. So to get an ideal as is prescribed in law is impossible in IBC because of how skewed it's going to be. Number two, IBC independence is a question you've asked before. IBC is independent on paper. It can't be independent in fact, on account of the fact it's beholden to funding. Funding comes from the executive. But again, it is oversighted by Parliament. parliament that has its own problems in account of the person has, again, to go through a parliamentary process for purposes of debunking some of the issues in terms of appointment and even operationalization. Money allocated to IBC goes through Parliament, but I know the executive has a bigger hand. And Parliament will give IBC and deal with it on account of how it places itself in keeping with IBC. IBC itself want to conduct itself in a manner as to the environment as will subsist as at the time. For instance, right now, the antennas as to accountability are very high. So if these political decibels of Gen Z's lower a bit, we go back to where we were, the bad behavior of non-accountability. And remember, everybody would want to get into power in the next elections. You play it well with IBC, you get into power.
The energy is already there. I don't know what about you, Butishi.
What I want to point is that...
as you also respond to that, have you noticed that this is the first bill to be passed out of the report that came from the NADCO report?
Yes. In fact, I was coming there.
Yes.
That this bill is being signed today on the heels of a NADCO report where we had majority of the political parties participate, especially the opposition and government. They came up with recommendations. So in today's bill, we expect that those recommendations have been lifted from the report, the way they were, into that bill. That's number one. Number two, you know, we live in Kenya and in Africa. And at any point, those commissioners will be appointed to that body, will be seen, one, maybe because of a name, because of the name, you'll be seen to be biased with a certain presidential candidate. Because of profession, because of your ethnicity, because where you come from originally, you'll be seen to be associated with a certain presidential candidate. A case in example is that in the last election, among the Cherera 4, there was a commissioner there who automatically, somebody would have thought that commissioner would be with the President William Ruto. But that commissioner was on the other side. So as Kenyans, we need probably Wakilis here. What would be the best way for us to have a commission that people will not look through the names, through the religion, through the region where you come from? Because at the end of the day, we need
perhaps
to have,
that was reflected
we
by
need to
what
have these
Azimio,
Kenyans.
because we've not heard Azimio talk about it.
Yes.
Perhaps they also have that copy. I think they have that copy because we've not heard them speak. Last week, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka said that that bill should be signed into law.
Yes.
So perhaps there is something they know, of course. Have you not heard this? Part of the recommendation, you correct me, is they wanted the constitution and the composition of that body to reflect from the church body, from the religious sector and all that.
Whatever composition you're going to have,
yes,
is going to have an interpretation by the analysts that so-and-so comes from this church and this presidential candidate.
Excuse me, an interpretation by what?
I'm saying whatever composition that we're going to have,
yes,
people will interpret it using different parameters.
Okay.
Either by name, either by church, either by the region where you come from. Will not really will not sit back and say this is the best commission that people are going to interpret it in different ways. So we should live with what we have and properly whatever has been going with Gen Z. Now even the independent commission, they know that they must deliver. Anything short of delivering, then they know that people can actually hold them to account personally.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay. Wakili, do you think it's going to cure the issues, the perennial kind of symptoms we should have during elections? Because you've said there's that foresight about 2027.
I think so. I think so because to satisfy a political outcome that is a democratic process is completely difficult. Remember, democracy in itself is folly. It prescribes that when we move into elections, we, as a community, divide ourselves into certain biases, certain fiefdoms of sorts. So there's nothing wrong with you voting a person because from your tribe. Nothing wrong in law. There's nothing wrong with voting a person because he gave you money. That completes the bias.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a person who helped you pay school fees for your daughter or son, and therefore you are beholden to him or her, and so on and so forth. We ordinarily put rules that probably limit or reduce the area of biases. But that's a very big fissure. Remember, in every community, there'll be areas of departure and fissures and separation. It could be religion. There are people who kill each other on account of religion. Even that one religion could have its own fiefdoms. It could be ethnicity. And our dominant question of fissure here and separation as a community is, as a Kenyan community, is ethnicity. And you break down the ethnicity element into clanism at times. And at times, in our villages, we have our own biases. Now, you will never miss that. And it's very important. In fact, there must be differences in society for us to run democracy.
Yes.
Because it is those differences that people are biased for one and against another that we have an outcome of a winner, a majoritarian aspect or outcome. Because of that, then, it means, therefore, that we have democracy prescribes that it must be wounding and healing. The society is divided, then it heals. Is divided, is healed, over processes until such a time that we can tolerate the separation, the wounding and the healing.
And the pain.
Yes. What we've done, therefore, is this, because we've accepted it, and I know it's a foreign concept, we were told, we were conscripted into this foreign concept. This is what we need to do. I think we need to know that our differences now is ethnicity. How do we accommodate ourselves after after an election where there's perception? Not perception of an outcome.
Yes.
There's usually perception of loss.
I get it.
Those are two different things. Perception of an outcome is that this is what we went to do. Now this person is the MCA. This is the president. This is the women rep. And that's the outcome. When you say we lost, it is a grievance. And that grievance is emotive. It's emotion.
Okay.
And it's emotionalized in a sense that we take to the streets and we kill each other. Certainly. That is what the IBC needs to avoid.
Yes.
That it brings out an outcome of an election as opposed to a win and a loss.
Gentlemen, I have 2 minutes so that we wind up. Time imekimbia. All right. 2 questions. How are we going to exercise separation of power? Because now we have IBC, once it's assented to, now the formation of that commission is now a process that is going to be moving forward. So how are we going to have the separation of power between the executive, the 3 arms of government? That is question 1. Question 2, so how then are we going to have, because the delimitation and the review process, the boundaries is also something that is long overdue. Are we going to do it? Because right now it's long overdue. And as we move forward, election is also ahead of us because for the politicians, there's no time left. I know, Wakili, you know this one so far. Very quickly, because I have only 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think the plate of IBC is full. I expect when the commissions come into place, they'll be able to move with speed. And I expect for them to be truly independent is that they are given their budget to run their own budget without necessarily being given in small bits to control them. That Bunge passes that law to appropriate funds to the IBC so that they're able to run their own programs without any reference to anybody. Number 2, issue of separation of powers. I don't know, maybe in future we should come up with a law because, you see, once you are elected into parliament, you belong to a political party. The president also belongs to a political party. And most of the time, president will always consult his political party members of parliament for certain decisions to be made. How we're going to move into the future, I'm seeing a scenario whereby, I don't know, whether we can come up with a law once election is over, your party leads as a member of parliament so that you function independently. Because Bunge is supposed to be an oversight over executive, whether at a county level or at national level. But you find the 2 bodies working seamlessly together. Not really for the benefit of the people, but to subvert some kind of constitutional things. And
donate your 1 minute to Wakili as well.
Yes.
So that
that's fine.
Thank you. Let me put it this way.
Kindly.
We have tried as a country. Honestly, we have. We've amended the law such that we personalize crime to the person holding the office. So that if you commit a crime, as an admonishment against the commissioners, it goes personal to that commissioner. That one we have done. But maybe the threat is not there yet. In this country, we have very good laws, I can tell you. I have gone to law school, I have practiced these laws, I have lived with these laws. We have very good laws. Implementation is a problem. But the second issue, again, is bad behavior, good behavior is personal. so that then if you become a commissioner, there is the higher calling and duty unto the people of Kenya, not to the people that have put you there. Because remember, again, there's the friction of whoever pays the paper calls the shots. You will be seconded to that position through a process, clergy, political party, and certain backgrounds. But when you get there, remember, you've gotten there on an environment of a very robust political settlements that have costed blood of people in this country over time until now, until the current protestations that we have. It is this. Kenyans, we must learn that if you are promoted into certain officialdom, you go there to deliver to the people of Kenya beholden in that office, and not unto a certain clique of people that in offices. The moment we learn that this election is for the people of Kenya, it doesn't matter whoever comes into office, deliver the outcome. Do not deliver a win for anyone.
Because the power,
deliver the outcome, because the sovereign power belongs to the people of
Gentlemen,
Kenya.
allow me to wind up. Time runs when you're having a good time. I hope we are all men, we know this. When you're having a good time in some corner somewhere, time runs pretty fast. Asante sana for coming. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll be crossing over to Zinga, of course. Gharama ya matumizi, serikalini, that is a discussion that Rashid Momkondo will be driving there with David Alulu, who is an economic expert, as well as Honorable Steve Mogaka, who is Member of Parliament, West Mogirango. Butichi, asante sana, is an engineer.
Thank you.
And also political analyst, asante sana, Hamisi Butichi, as well as Wakili George Kithi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. All right, so at 9 a.m., the president will be at the KICC. Actually, he's invited everybody from across the political divide, and I know that's what you've just said. It belongs to the people, and a majority of people who actually gave their concerns and their voices were the political parties from both sides, and even other stakeholders. All right, at 9, we'll be crossing over to KICC. My name is Victor. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.